Hello, AP Seminar. Welcome to Galusha's Corner here, 9.7 Interpersonal Attraction. We've got an awful lot to unpack here today. These are just some of the terms that we'll be going over, but also I would kind of really make sure that you focus on the different things that will make us attracted to another person as other notes that you'd want to take on 9.7, because there's a lot of questions on that. So those factors that you'd want to take notes on for 9.7 will include proximity, attractiveness, physical attractiveness, and similarity as factors as to whether or not we find someone attractive. So first one, this one's easy, proximity. This kind of and used to maybe mean geographic closeness. So the more opportunities to interact with a person, the more that we may find them attractive. If you never cross paths with someone, you can't ever find them attractive in the first place. But what it appears, though, is the more you see someone, that actually might increase how attractive you find them. This is due to something called the mere exposure effect, which we need to understand. The mere exposure effect just says that the more often we are exposed to a stimulus, the more positively we will rate that stimulus. And this works with things and it works with people. Now, I do want to kind of unpack the fact that it might not just be geographic nowadays. That exposure could also be electronic. Notice on these graphs, how does this data change our notion of proximity? See, both for same-sex and heterosexual couples, the really interesting trend here, watch those things when you're reading graphs, watch the thing that stands out. And the thing that stands out here that's different than all the rest is that online dating. And so meeting people through friends is on the decline, through coworkers is on the decline, kind of flatlined with colleges, secondary schools and churches on the decline, obviously very small for same-sex couples, college down. But really the big difference here, starting in the mid-90s, is that online dating scene. So it might not just be proximity geographically, it might be also that the internet is changing our abilities to be close to someone, to interact with them beyond just a geographical setting. Regardless of the venue for the proximity, whether that be actual physical or online, as evidenced by these graphs, that exposure is what makes the difference. That mere exposure effect, again, is a phenomenon that repeated exposure to a novel stimuli increases our liking. For our ancestors, it makes a lot of sense. What was familiar was genuinely safe to them and approachable. What was unfamiliar caused the danger. So we may therefore are kind of hardwired to bond to things that are familiar to us. It's actually really kind of cute. So here we got a little white penguin that was born in Sydney, Australia's zoo. Zookeepers thought that he would be kind of shunned. But after a couple of days, they actually were even considering painting him. But after a couple of days into the exposure, he became more accepted by his fellow penguins. That's the mere exposure effect. Just seeing something often kind of makes it more normal and more acceptable. Another great research study of this is Moreland and Beach in 1992. Their independent variable was the number of times a person attends class. And what they did is they grabbed 4 female confederates. That's just what we call someone who's in on an experiment. And they had the 4 different confederates visit a large class. One confederate never visited it. One of them visited it 5 times, 10 times, and then the last one 15 times. And what they had the people do as for their dependent variable is measure the visitor's overall personality. And what they found, according to the mere exposure effect, is that the more times the person was there, the more used to the person they got, the more they saw that person, the more exposed they were, the higher they rated them. So the one that was 0, ratings of attractiveness, of visitor's personality, was rated down here at just above a 3.5. The person with 15, all the way up almost to a 4.5, showing that exposure increases attraction. I'm not saying for you to stalk your crush. Okay, that's not the message you want to get out of this. But that exposure does make a difference. Does it apply to ourselves? This is kind of sad. We have some research that finds that humans like other people when our faces incorporate some morphed features of our own. So if you remember the other day, we talked about in-group and out-group bias. Because my in-group is more exposed, I'm more used to them. I might also find them more attractive. It also applies to just people that share facial features that are like ours. We were more trusting in some research studies if the person's image in that study had some of our own facial features built in, kind of showing maybe a genetic predisposition to those inside our small social circle. Just because this exists maybe as a hardwired thing doesn't mean that we can't use our large prefrontal cortexes to overcome that. And as Verna Myers says, go outside the prison walls of our in-groups, right? Like we have the choice to do that. And we're going to have to hold on to that choice, my friends, because this topic is going to get pretty disgusting in just a couple minutes when we talk about physical attraction. Speaking of physical attraction, I segued right into that, and it's just going to go downhill from here. Okay, so the question is physical attraction really all that important? Well, one study in the 60s in Minnesota students for a welcome week. Before the dance, the researchers gave each student a ton of different things: a personality test, an aptitude test, physical attractiveness ratings. And they had the students go on blind dates, and the couples danced and they talked for about 2 hours, and they took a brief intermission to rate their dates. And what they found is that the only thing that predicted whether or not a person would want a second date with that person was appearance. It appeared that both men and women liked good-looking dates the best. Now, that's back in 1966. Maybe this has changed, right? Like maybe appearance isn't the overriding characteristic. Maybe we've gone beyond that and we look past the superficial. Nah, that's not what we're going to find. So we've got a study done in 2017. Researchers asked young women to choose potential dates from a series of photographs and descriptions, and they also asked their mom to choose potential dates for their daughter. Research showed that a man's looks influence both groups, mom and daughter, more strongly than any personality profile that he had. Even if the profile was filled with really highly desirable personal qualities, such as being respectful, honest, trustworthy. Nope, it was how cute he was. And that was done in 2017. Sense of humor, intelligence, kindness, understanding, a family orientation. Research consistently shows that we rank most or all of these traits as important, as more important. Like, this is what we say we're looking for. I want someone who makes me laugh. But when we make real life dating and mating choices, research indicates physical appearance dominates. We choose to pursue relationships with those who are attractive to us. And I've got a ton of studies on that. So yes, physical attraction does matter to us. And it appears that both men, regardless of sexual orientation, seem to consciously recognize the importance of physical attractiveness more than women. So we say it more often that it matters. However, experimental research shows that physical attractiveness is kind of equally important to both men and women. Attractiveness tends to be a more important factor in our dating decisions than traits like personality, education, and intelligence. Okay, so there might be something hardwired into what we're picking, and that's what we want to kind of pull apart right now. Because we do assume that if someone has a good trait, we do kind of assume that that's going to go over to other traits. And that might be what we're doing here with rating physical attractiveness. It's called the halo effect. It's the tendency to assume that someone or something with an attractive quality has other positive qualities. So if a person is attractive, we might assume they're more intelligent. And in fact, there's a really good article here if you want to read it, from some research that's done. Attractive people are perceived, get ready for this, buckle in, as more successful, dominant, sociable, trustworthy, mentally stable, and intelligent than unattractive people. They, on average, make more money and are less likely to be perceived as guilty. We're so basic. In fact, in 1973, researchers gave teachers objective information about a scholastic and social potential of a student accompanied by a photograph of either a cute or an ugly kid. Don't get sad. Don't get sad. No, this is bad. It was found that the child's attractiveness was associated with the teacher's expectations about how intelligent the kid was, how interested in education the kid would be, how far they would likely progress, and how popular they would be with their peers. And these were teachers making this assumption based upon fake photos. If the photo was of a cute kid, they were more likely to be intelligent, interested in education, go far, and be popular. And if the kid was ugly, the teacher made assumptions that were lower on that. That's the halo effect, seeing one feature and carrying it over to others. And we might do that with physical attraction as well. But it might go a little bit deeper, because if you look across cultures, physical attractiveness along a lot of lines is not arbitrary in what we are looking for. Conceptions of attractiveness, yes, they do vary by culture. And they vary by culture, whether it's body weight, face painting, plastic surgery, scarring, piercings. Those things vary by culture. In the United States, we have different conceptions that have changed vastly over years that are very different from other cultures, with body weight, emphasis on breast size for males, plastic surgery to do calf implants. This is not the stuff I'm talking about. These are cultural variations, and oftentimes unhealthy, right? Cultural variations with body weight. No, I'm talking about things that go across every culture that we see. And what factors exist across all cultures for physical attractiveness? First and foremost, it's body type. It is an hourglass figure, which I have shown there for females, and V-shaped for men. Facial symmetry is super important across all cultures. For females, in the facial structure, large eyes, prominent cheekbones, and a small nose. For men, broad jaw, large eyes, prominent cheekbones. And we'll see these findings as hallmarks of physical attractiveness across all cultures. You can't say that it's society that's doing that. If you rule out society, you've got to look at something else. You've got to look at what genetically is causing these traits to be seen. Well, it makes an awful lot of sense if you look at evolutionary psychology. Evolutionary psychology would say that we do behaviors for a certain reason that make us more likely to mate or survive. So why would the hourglass figure be perceived as attractive across cultures? Because that is a sign of being able to successfully carry children. Why is a V-shaped figure attractive for men? Because that's a sign of high testosterone rates, and then that person will be able to care or protect children. Facial symmetry shows that genetic health of having cells divide evenly across the face. Again, with high levels of estrogen are associated with large eyes, prominent cheekbones, and a small nose, whereas high levels of testosterone are seen with broad jaws. I think the wide smile is probably like willingness to be social, so that makes the mating process easier. But these are all signs of reproductive health, and that would be an example of evolutionary psychology creating a baseline across the species that this is something that we find attractive in a mate. What makes a face attractive? It's that symmetry. Again, it's showing genetic health. Do we see this across cultures? Yes. 1989, 37 cultures basically came out with the same sex differences in mate preferences. They were asked the importance of 18 characteristics in potential mates using a 4-point scale. And this one went a little deeper than just physical attraction. This one gave a whole bunch of different things. Are they a good companion? Are they considerate? Are they honest? Are they affectionate? They have a good sense of humor? Can they cook? Are they good looking? Are they frugal? And what it found across 37 cultures is that men did rate physical attractiveness as high, followed by youthfulness. In almost every culture, males preferred younger females, while females preferred males who were slightly older. And they also preferred chastity, which gets into that myth of the virgin that's already experienced in kind of a horrible prison for us to put female sexuality. Whereas females preferred good financial prospects, industriousness, and this was mirrored in 27 other countries as women consistently married men who were several years older than themselves. why this change is, are men really looking for younger women and women really gold diggers? Like, this doesn't seem like this is very uplifting. What would make it the same across all of these cultures? Again, evolutionary psychology. Think about the reproductive realities that differ between sexes. For females, there's a carrying of the child for 9 months plus the years and years and years that it takes to raise the child. So having a mate with good financial stability and industriousness gives you someone who can care for the mate. Whereas men preferring someone who is young would signal the ability to raise a child, and chastity, not having other sexual partners would allow the male to know that the child was theirs. Now, this is you can see it very quickly how we get into the horrible patriarchy of our society. You can see the objectification of females at a very young age start here with the emphasis on youth. You can see the contradictory messages of be virgin yet be sexually experienced. So I think some of the horrible things of the patriarchy and how misogynistic our society can be have their start here in this genetic difference that maybe has shaped society into an unhealthy pattern. But that might be why those preferences exist there. So that's the murky world of physical attractiveness. Now, do opposites really attract? That's our final one, similarity. So we've done proximity. So yes, you have to be close to someone. Attractiveness, yes, it matters. And then we have similarity. Do opposites attract? No. In fact, they repel. In real life, opposites retract. Compared with randomly paired people, friends and couples are far more likely to share common attitudes, beliefs, and interests, regardless of like looking at other groups. Couples are going to be, and friends are going to be much, much more similar. So similarity attracts, and perceived dissimilarity does not. Okay, so now you find someone. You're in geographic proximity to them. You both find each other attractive. Maybe there are the traits that the person is looking for that exist. We'll get into even more of that when we do evolutionary psychology. And then you're similar enough that a relationship starts. So what do you get when you find the one? Well, hopefully you get this, which is called consummate love. So consummate love is the triangular theory of love from Sternberg. And we're going to try to break this down. Notice that we have passionate love over here, down at this bottom. We have commitment love over here. And then we have intimacy. And hopefully if we have all three, intimacy, passion, and commitment, you end up with the perfect triangle here of consummate love. We also have some loves that are just two, so passion and intimacy just in commitment, and fatuous love, just passion and commitment. So let's break these down a little bit. So intimacy involves feelings of closeness and connectedness and bondedness. This is sharing your thoughts and feelings in your day with a person. This is your partner being your best friend. That's intimacy. Passion absolutely involves feelings and desires that lead to physical attraction, romance, and sexual consummation. So that's having passion and sex in a relationship. And then finally, commitment involves feelings that you're going to stick with the person, that you're going to remain with someone and move towards shared goals over a long time. So what we see, if we have just passion and intimacy, that is basically sex and closeness, and that might be a very, very quick thing because there's no commitment in there. Notice the commitment's not there. So that romantic love is quick. It might be a one-night stand or a romantic fling for a weekend, but that's romantic love. It might be the first part of a relationship. Over in companionate love, that's the exact opposite here. We do have the intimacy. So we're very, very close in a friendship way. We're committed to staying with the person, but there's no sex, there's no passion in the relationship. That is kind of petered off. This is typically seen in long-term marriages where it's more of a business relationship. They're very close, they're very tied to goals, but the passion has gone away. There's fatuous love. Fatuous love here there is passion and commitment. They just don't really talk to each other that much. And so this might be a whirlwind romantic relationship that ends up in a very quick marriage. And so there's a deep desire to be with the person, to be committed to the person. There's a desire, there's for the person, a sexual desire, and yet there's really no intimacy. So the relationship kind of peters off when they have no way to keep that common ground. And then the goal here is to have a relationship with all three, and that would be consummate love. So that's a quick look at human attraction and the notion of consummate love. We'll get into more with evolutionary psychology. Just one parting thought with all of this is that at the end of the day, we're not just our hardwired genetic code and our little limbic systems. We have these big prefrontal cortexes that can go beyond some of this stuff and make us less base. So if some of this was depressing today, it doesn't have to be. We can overcome some of those kind of more basic desires. But it might be helpful to understand why our society has some of the problems that it does with that genetic baggage that we have to deal with. Thank you, AP Psychers. This is the end of social psychology. We have made it. Best of luck, and I will see you in the next unit.